When this is over, Claire, I'm leaving you. That's what he said, while I sat beside our dying daughter's hospital bed, while I held her hand, while machines beeped out the slow rhythm of a life slipping away. He didn't even flinch when he said it. He thought it was the perfect time. He thought my grief would make it easier, for him. But what he didn't know? I already knew. I'm Claire. I'm 46 years old, married for 20 years, mother to Lily, my heart, my soul, my only child. For 12 years, she filled every corner of my world with her stubborn little smile. And for the last 6 months, that world had shrunk to this hospital room. Lily had been fighting a rare, aggressive autoimmune disease. Her body was attacking itself, and no treatment seemed to stop it. I lived here now, in this chair, in this constant state of hope and heartbreak. And my husband? He visited. At first, I told myself he was coping in his own way. But then the visits got shorter. The excuses got longer. The man who once held my hand through every storm now barely looked me in the eye. And then there was her. I saw the messages. I wasn't supposed to, of course. He was careful. But grief makes you notice things. Like when a man's phone lights up at 2:13 a.m. with a message from another woman. Soon she'll be gone, and we'll finally be free. Free. As if Lily's death was some overdue appointment. As if burying our child would somehow grant him permission to start over. That night, something inside me shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because this wasn't going to be a screaming match in a hospital corridor. Number. He thought I was too broken to fight. But grief had taught me patience. So when he stood there, delivering his little speech, "When this is over, Claire, I'm leaving you," he believed he was in control. He had no idea. He was already losing. Because while he had been preparing his exit, I had been preparing for this exact moment. And he was about to find out just how dangerous a quiet woman can be. The signs were there long before he said it. But when your child is dying, your brain learns to protect you. You stop asking questions you're too scared to hear the answers to. So when he started coming home late, I told myself he was working more to pay for Lily's treatments. When he grew distant, I told myself he was grieving quietly. But grief doesn't smell like unfamiliar perfume. It doesn't come with text notifications from numbers you don't recognize. The night I saw her message, Lily was asleep. The room was dark except for the soft glow of monitors. He had left his phone face down as usual. But when it buzzed, it lit up the entire windowsill. I didn't even mean to look, but my eyes went straight to the words. Soon, she'll be gone, and we'll finally be free. 7 words. That's all it took to kill what was left of my marriage. Not that he noticed. He came back into the room minutes later, coffee in hand, lips forming the same empty questions. Any change? Did the nurse come by? As if we were discussing the weather. I didn't answer. Not because I couldn't, because I was learning something right then. He wasn't grieving with me. He was waiting. Waiting for Lily to die so he could leave without blame. No messy divorce, no judgment. Just a poor, broken man who lost his daughter and, tragically, his marriage. That was his plan. But he had no idea who I had become sitting in this chair day after day, night after night, while he was off preparing his freedom. Grief didn't make me blind. It made me sharp. I started watching him, really watching. Every fake phone call. Every, "I'll just step out for a minute." Every time his gaze slid away from mine when the doctors gave updates. And the cracks grew wider. One afternoon, he slipped up. He called me by her name. Not Lily's, Heron, the woman from the message. His face flushed immediately, covering it with some mumbled excuse. But it was too late. In that moment, I knew exactly what I was dealing with. This wasn't a man paralyzed by grief. This was a man rearranging his life, quietly, efficiently, while waiting for mine to collapse. But while he built his escape route, I started building my defense. I reached out to Jenna, my best friend, my compass, a lawyer with the kind of quiet ruthlessness you don't see coming. She didn't blink when I told her. "We're going to do this on your terms," she said. Those were the first words that felt like oxygen. While he planned his exit, we planned his downfall. I didn't confront him. That would have given him time to prepare. Instead, I smiled through it all. The family dinners, the hospital visits, the pretend concern. All the while, I gathered bank records, credit card statements. I traced every dollar funneled to his secret accounts. Every hotel booking that didn't match his meetings. But it wasn't just money. It was the pattern, the strategy. He wasn't just leaving me. He was positioning himself as the victim. And that's when I made the most important call. Her husband. He had no idea, until I showed him everything. We met in a quiet cafe. Two people with nothing left to lose. At first, he looked hollow, but with every screenshot, every date, every hotel receipt, I watched the fog lift from his eyes. By the end of that meeting, we weren't two abandoned spouses. We were partners. He had resources I didn't, contacts, leverage, and the same cold focus I had been sharpening. Together, we mapped out every lie, every move my husband thought was invisible. He believed his betrayal was clean, but every step he took left a footprint, and we followed every single one. By the time he stood beside Lily's bed and said, "When this is over, Claire, I'm leaving you," he thought he was in control. He thought I'd crumble. But the truth? I was ready. I had been ready for a long time. While he planned his freedom, I planned his destruction. The difference was, he thought he had time. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to throw things. That would have been a gift to him. A messy, emotional wife would have fit his narrative perfectly. But I'm not here to make him comfortable. I stayed quiet. Let him believe he was the only one moving pieces on the board. He had no idea the game had already shifted. Every night after he left the hospital claiming he needed air, I made my own calls. To Jenna, to the forensic accountant, to the people who knew how to make things disappear, or appear when necessary. While he was pouring cheap wine for her in some rented apartment, I was closing every door behind him. Lily's medical trust? Locked. Untouchable. He'd been dipping into it under the radar. Small amounts, just enough to think I wouldn't notice. But I noticed. By the time he realized it, every account was fortified. I didn't stop there. I rerouted our finances, split assets legally, quietly. He still believed in our accounts. Still swiped our credit cards without knowing they were living on borrowed time. The more he pulled away, the deeper I dug in. And then there was her husband, the wild card who turned out to be my sharpest ally. He had access my lawyers couldn't touch. Private work emails, expense reports, conversations my husband thought were deleted. They weren't. Together, we built a timeline so perfect it was almost surgical. His affair wasn't just an affair. It was premeditated abandonment. It was financial fraud. It was reputational suicide. And he handed me every tool I needed with his arrogance. The more I uncovered, the calmer I became. Because once you see a man for who he really is, there's a strange kind of peace that settles in. I wasn't grieving my marriage anymore. I was preparing its funeral. All that was left was timing. I knew he'd want his moment. He wasn't subtle. He'd been building up to it with every cold shoulder, every absent night. He wanted to be the one to end it, to play the part of the exhausted, grieving man forced to move on. So I let him. I let him choose the moment. And when he stood beside Lily's hospital bed, with that perfect, practiced voice saying, "When this is over, Claire, I'm leaving you," I knew. This wasn't his moment. It was mine, because every card he thought he held had already been taken. He just hadn't realized it yet. But he would. Very soon. "When this is over, Claire, I'm leaving you." His words hung in the air like the stale hospital light. He said it softly, almost rehearsed, as if he was doing me a favor, as if I hadn't been sitting beside our daughter's bed, listening to her breaths slow while he played house with someone else. I didn't flinch, not because it didn't hurt, but because I'd been waiting for this exact moment. He thought this was his grand finale, but it was only the beginning. "I know," I said, calm, 2 words that made his face twitch. He expected tears, a scene, an emotional collapse. But what he got was a woman who had already buried her marriage months ago. He shifted his weight, hands in his pockets, defensive, suddenly unsure. Because for the first time in this entire affair, I wasn't reacting. And that terrified him. "You don't understand, Claire. This has been hard on both of us. I need to move on." There it was, his rehearsed speech. Polished, safe, scripted for the sympathetic audience he thought he'd have. But I wasn't playing along. "You've been moving on for months," I said softly. "You're just now saying it out loud." He opened his mouth, probably to deny, but my phone buzzed on the windowsill. I didn't break eye contact as I reached for it. A message from Jenna. "Funds frozen. He's locked out. All confirmed." Perfect timing, he noticed. Of course he did. His eyes flicked to my phone, then back to me. Something shifted behind them. A flicker of fear. Before he could speak, his own phone vibrated in his pocket. He didn't answer. Couldn't. But I knew what it was. HR. His company had been very interested in the business expenses we'd so carefully documented. "Claire," he started, "we don't have to do this now." "Now?" I repeated, as in beside our daughter's deathbed? I tilted my head. "Funny, you chose this moment, not me." His face flushed. The silence wrapped around us, thicker than any argument. And then came the next hit. Another buzz, another message, this time from her husband. "Divorce papers served. Board knows. She's explaining herself right now." He reached for his phone, slower this time, as if bracing for impact. His fingers hovered, but didn't touch it. In that instant, he understood. Every exit he had quietly prepared had already been sealed. Every escape route blocked. He looked smaller, shrunken by his own arrogance. "You thought Lily's death would set you free," I said, voice low. "You thought you'd be the grieving father, the poor man who lost everything." I leaned forward slightly. "But you lost me long before today. You just didn't notice." He searched for words. None came. Not a single excuse could survive the weight of the truth now. Because while he had been busy orchestrating his new life, I had been dismantling his old one, piece by piece. No drama, no shouting, just quiet, deliberate moves. He came to deliver a goodbye, but all he did was walk into his own reckoning. I stood up slowly, adjusted Lily's blanket, kissed her forehead. She was still my world. This wasn't about revenge for me. It was about dignity. Mine. Heron. He stood there, lost. For once, I let the silence sit with him. Uncomfortable. Undeniable. Claire. He tried again. But I was done listening. You should go, I said. He hesitated, as if realizing for the first time that leaving wasn't going to be the clean escape he had imagined. That the wreckage would follow him. That his version of the story wouldn't survive the truth. And the best part? I hadn't raised my voice once. As he walked out of that room, shoulders hunched, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Because the moment he chose to leave was the moment I had already won. He thought he was writing my ending. But all he did was trigger his own. He thought Lily's death would set him free. But the only thing it freed was me. In the days that followed, he tried to save face. A few pitiful texts, half-hearted apologies. Maybe we can talk when things calm down. As if there was anything left to say. His accounts were frozen. His affair was public. His reputation, once so carefully curated, was unraveling in real time. But I didn't need to watch him fall. That wasn't why I did it. I stayed by Lily's side, held her hand through every heartbeat. She passed knowing her mother had never left her, that her mother had never wavered, and that's what mattered. When people asked later how I kept it together, I smiled. Because the truth is, grief teaches you exactly who you are. It burns away the noise, the distractions, the lies. It shows you what's real. He wanted a clean slate, but I made sure he started from scratch. No money, no sympathy, no manufactured story of the grieving father bravely moving on. He thought he was leaving a broken woman. But I wasn't broken. I was sharper, quieter, unstoppable. The best revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was letting him walk into his own downfall while I stood tall, unbothered. He used Lily's death as his escape plan. But in the end, he was the only one who lost everything. I lost my daughter, but I never lost myself. When I walked out of that hospital, I wasn't his wife anymore. I wasn't his victim. I was the woman who had taken every lie, every betrayal, and built my own way out. And the look on his face, when he realized I had done it all without ever raising my voice, that was worth more than any public spectacle. He thought he was burying me. But all he did was dig his own grave, and I didn't even have to lift a finger.